Welcome to episode number 80 of Hoop Talk Fanatics. I am here with Ant Wright to recap a full slate of games from last night and what his thoughts are on the AP Top 25 and previewing the biggest games this upcoming weekend. So, welcome.
What's going on?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right, perfect.
So, what game stood out to you last night?
I mean, all the games, man. All the games, man. It was I mean, even looking at the non-conference games that I'm looking at with other leagues, the SEC, ACC Challenge, with like Duke and Auburn, that was a real good game. Bama going to Chapel Hill and winning, that was a big game. And then when like you're talking about the league, like you have a couple teams who are near the bottom had they both lost, but like one team definitely had a shot down the stretch there, and then with like Maryland and Ohio State, like you probably thought that was going to be a much closer game, but Maryland just came out and blitzed them. So, um, very eventful, very eventful night for sure.
What were your thoughts on Alabama's performance defeating North Carolina 94-79?
Okay, what you want to know about it, man?
Uh, just
I mean,
wondering
I
your
don't think North Carolina is. I mean, their brand is still strong. You know,
Mhm.
their brand is still strong. I think it's still one of the best and one of the coolest brands out there for sure. But for them to go out and not get a big man is a shame, because when you're Carolina, you should be able to go get whoever you need to fill whatever spots you need to be filled. And they're out there trotting out Jalen Washington, which is crazy. There's a reason why Cliff and Nelson had 21 and 14 last night. Controlled the paint, con- controlled the game on both ends. North Carolina does have a good guard trio and all that, but I mean, there's got to be a lot more to it than just the guard play. Not having a big is just you can't do that when your goal is to whether it's winning a championship, competing for the ACC, or getting to any type of deep run. Their front court is very, very unserious.
Do you think that North Carolina will be out of the top 25 at all the rest of the season?
Oh, for sure. I mean, right now they're a 500 team. I think they're 4-4. They're
Yeah.
4-4 right now. I fully expect them to drop out in the next rankings. They play. I think they have Georgia Tech. They've lost 3 straight, and then they've got a Georgia Tech team who they should beat. But either way, they should be out the rankings for sure.
Uh, I know that there was a big matchup between Iowa State and Marquette, and Iowa State just came out with great game plan. And what were your thoughts on how they approached Marquette?
I mean, with Iowa State and Marquette, you're talking about two of the teams with really, really good backcourts on both sides, and you saw how good Cam Jones is for Marquette, and how good the the Iowa State guards are as well. Um, but like Marquette, you're talking about an undefeated team coming in. Um, you're talking about uh, Iowa State protecting home court. It kind of sucks that the game was on ESPN Plus. It's kind of nuts to have a 5 and a 6, and you got to be able to stream the game. But Cam Jones is legit. He didn't shoot the ball great, but in terms of getting his teammates involved and in terms of just making the right plays, he did that. And a part of those struggles is because Iowa State is such a good defensive team. And when you have guys like Keyshawn Gilbert and, you got Momcilovic being able to be a pro, he didn't have a great game, but I mean, the talent across the board for Iowa State's pretty good. So Marquette needed to play a perfect game. I think they tied it late at like 61. And then Iowa State went on like a 10-0 or 11-0 run themselves and pretty much kept it right there and kept them at arm's length.
So looking at this weekend's slate of games, there's a pretty good slate of games. I wrote down some games to talk about. My first game is Kansas State against St. John's. What do you think will happen?
I mean, they're both 6-2, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, St. John's, you got Patino. Kansas State, they don't really have a great win this year. I think this is their first, not their first time, but this is another opportunity for them to go out and get a decent win. They haven't had a great season so far, even though they have, pretty good transfers who came in. They just haven't realized their full potential yet. But playing a team like St. John's, and I believe this is going to be like, I'm not sure if this is going to be, I'm not sure if this is going to be considered, if it's at St. John's or it's just in New York. I'm not sure. But either way, this is going to be the first road type atmosphere for Kansas State. And I do expect St. John's to win that game because that is a very good St. John's team. They probably should have beat Baylor. It was a 5-point game with like 10 seconds left and you end up losing that game. It's kind of wild to me. But yeah, it's just a big game for just both teams. But I do see St. John's coming out and getting that W in that game.
What do you think about number 11 Wisconsin at number 5 Marquette?
That's going to be a big game for Wisconsin because they are coming off a loss. And that's on the road too. So like overall, you're looking at, I mean, Wisconsin's next 6 games are just huge for them. And being able to go to Marquette and compete at a high level is going to be very, very important. This is going to be their first true road game, I believe. I think this is at Milwaukee, so that's at Fiserv. So, Marquette coming off of a loss, Wisconsin coming off of a loss. Games like that, neither team wants to drop back-to-back games, so that should be an electric game. We'll see if Marquette can really get after the Wisconsin guards, and we'll see if they have somebody who can stop John Tanji. We'll see, and then not only stop him but stop Blackwell, and then you have the size advantage inside with Crowell and Winter. Michigan had guys to counter that. Marquette doesn't really have towers like that who could move and really take full advantage of that. This should be similar to the Pitt game for Wisconsin. So hopefully they're able to take lessons from that game and apply them there and be able to just compete, keep it close until the end, and then it's college hoops, man. Anything can happen.
What are your thoughts on the Ivy League and Princeton? Princeton has a big game against Furman. What are your initial thoughts on that one?
I mean, The Ivy is always a tough league. The Ivy is always a super tough league, man. I mean, you have what you know Columbia's done this year. They've already beaten Villanova. You have Princeton, who's already beaten Duquesne. They've beaten a Portland team who had Oregon on the ropes at Oregon a few weeks ago. So, I mean, every game for the Ivies is a big game to get better because that's always going to be. No, I can't say always, but that's usually going to be a one bid league, and they have to get ready to be one of the best teams in the Ivy because I think only the top 4 get to advance into their Ivy League tournament, and from there you got to win 2 games to get to the NCAA. So it's really important to come out firing and just at the end just take something positive from the game for sure.
What are your thoughts on their offensive performances lately for Princeton, and do you think that they have the chance to be a team to be on the lookout once the tournament hits?
For sure. I mean, like right now, I think they're top 30 in 3-point shooting. They share the ball and they take care of the ball. They're top 25 in assist to turnover ratio. So whenever you take care of the ball, you share the ball, you can make shots. You're always going to be a very dangerous ball club.
Looking at my list of games, I know Virginia goes to SMU, and Nebraska goes to Michigan State, and a big one at Rhode Island as Providence plays them. And there's a bunch of great games this weekend. And what were your thoughts on those 2 to 3 games?
I mean, you're looking at, it's kind of weird that we're talking about SMU in the ACC, first of all. But Virginia, they've had to battle adversity early with Tony Bennett leaving and, retiring. And, that new staff is trying to be the staff of next season or trying to do well enough where none other staff sees what they've done and hire them in. But, SMU is going to be a tough team, and they've been able to. I think they have a win against Washington State, but they lost their 2 biggest games. That was against Butler and I believe Mississippi State. But this is another really big game, a really big opportunity. A game that's going to launch their whole ACC basketball. That whole deal. So that should be a good game. I think it's a game that Virginia needs more than SMU because Virginia just got blasted by Florida. They've lost their last 3 games to half decent teams. They got blasted by St. John's. They weren't in the Tennessee game. They weren't in the St. John's game. They weren't in the Florida game either. They have to find a way to keep this game close at minimum, especially on the road. Just keep the game close. And then, like I said earlier for the other game, man, it's college hoops. Anything can happen at that point. Nebraska, Michigan State. Nebraska's proven to be one of the better defensive teams. So for Michigan State to be able to go, 2-0 in the conference, you got to be able to make shots. They're one of the worst shooting teams in the country, if not the worst. Got to continue to make shots. Nebraska is also one of those teams where you want to find a rhythm against them. So they may need to shorten their rotation just a little bit, just so guys get more acclimated and being on the floor with each other, because too much substituting can mess up a lot of their rhythm. So, but it is at home. But we saw Nebraska go to Creighton and, whip up on them. So Nebraska's going to have a pretty good game plan going into that game for sure. I'm trying to – let me see. I don't even think Nebraska has. I don't think Nebraska's played recently. It's been a while. I know they've played North Florida, but they've only played 2 games since that Creighton game. They've looked very good in both. So being able to go out on the road again and beating a Michigan State team who has been playing pretty well over the last couple weeks, it's going to be big. They are 7-2, but with they beat Minnesota handedly, beat North Carolina in overtime, beat Colorado. Samford's one of those games where it's like you're glad that you scheduled them because you won, but it's one of those games where that could have gone either way. So that should be a really fun game, really underrated game. What's that, like noon? That's at noon. So it's one of those games where you better wake up early, be ready to play, or one of these teams can get buzzsawed for sure.
What are your thoughts on Butler at Houston?
Butler at Houston?
Yeah.
Is that a game, really?
Yeah.
Butler better be ready to play. I don't like Butler's personnel going up against Houston at all. Yeah, Houston is 4-3. But one thing that Houston has this year is a little bit of offense. They're able to shoot the ball. They're one of the better shooting teams in the entire country, which is crazy to even say. I think they're like 5th in 3-point percentage. They're top 10 for sure. And they take care of the ball, and they're always going to have a very good defense. But they've lost some tough ones. San Diego State lost to Alabama, lost to Auburn. All these games were within 5 points. So they're 4-3, could very easily be 7-0. Butler has their hands full. Houston hasn't played in a week. They're going to be chomping at the bit for this game because they're 1-2 in the last 3.
My last question is, what are your thoughts on Pittsburgh and how they are performing?
I like Pitt. They just got destroyed last night, I think, like 90-57 or something. But outside of that, like they have a really good backcourt. I am all in on both Jalen Lowe and Ishmael Leggett. I'm all in on both those guys. Leggett had a terrible game. He was 3 for 14. Jalen was 7 for 21. We're talking about 2 of some of the best guards in the entire country. Just ran up against a really bad matchup in Mississippi State. But if they're going to have a get-back game, and that's going to be Virginia Tech's in trouble. Even though it's in Blacksburg, Virginia Tech's in trouble for sure. They're not going to repeat that. And they're coming off that very emotional win against Ohio State, where they were able to come back and win that game at the buzzer pretty much. I think it was like 91-90. But, yeah, they're going to be ready for this game for sure.
Sounds good. A jam-packed slate for this weekend, and thanks again for coming on, talking college hoops, and I'll definitely have you back on in the near future.
I appreciate it, man. Have a good one.
Thanks, you too.